We have a very close friend of ours in hospital, and he lives in Volcano, but he's in Honolulu right now. And I would love to send energy to him as a blessing chant. So his name is Earl. Many of you know Earl, and his wife Lois is with him. And they're a wonderful couple. And he had a stroke, and he's, I don't know if you've heard anything since yesterday, but
Still recovering.
still recovering, yeah. So he needs a lot of help with mobility, movement, and yeah, just letting everything flow again like it used to. So there's a prayer that I've been taught that pulls it all together. It's actually Hawaiian style. It tells God what you want, and God's ready to answer our prayers. He just needs to know what we want. This prayer says, "E ke akua," God, "E ho'o ho'ola mai oe." So it says, you bring healing. God, you do it. You bring the healing. We're asking you to do this. We're directing you. So when you say the word ola is health, and ho'o means to make it a verb, and a in front of the ho'o ola is a direction. We are giving direction to God. This is the person to help. Okay? So we're saying, you God, you do the healing. The next line is very similar. It says, "E ho'omaikai mai." So bring all the goodness, all the good things that whatever Earl needs, bring to him and bring to his wife. And the third line says, "E ho'omalu," bring peace to them. So, and then it says, "E aloha mai," bring the love, bring the happiness back. It's a very simple song, and I would love it if you would pick it up quickly and sing with me. Because it doesn't matter if you sing the right words, doesn't matter. What matters is your love behind the words. So you could just hum along if you want. But have the intention that God is helping this couple over in Honolulu. Okay? So I'll sing line by line and then let you come in and follow me. Because it's real easy. The melody is "E ke akua," says God.
Thank you all. We like to, or I like to, tell a story as part of whatever the topic is going to be today. The topic is meditation. But I'd like to tell a story about that. It's a story that some of you may know. It's a story, my interpretation, the level I interpret it at may come as a surprise to some. This is a story of Hina. Now, Hina is most well known throughout the Pacific. She usually called a goddess, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But she is known all throughout all of the Pacific, okay? Even beyond Polynesia. One of the oldest figures in legend. And usually associated with the ocean and associated with the moon. And this is a story that talks about her association with the moon. So this is only one version of this story. All of these stories have many versions depending on the storyteller. Okay? And so this was taken from mostly one version by a man named Westervelt, who translated this in the very early 1900s. And then some part of it from the work and research of Martha Beckwith. Okay, all right. So, Ikaba Kahiko, Mamua Okapena Kuke. Once upon a time, long before Captain Cook, there lived a woman on the island of Maui. Now, she lived at the base of a hill called Kauiki. In Hawaiian, it's really Kauiki, but most of the time it's just called Kauiki. This is a very significant hill. If you're ever up on Maui at Hana Bay, which is on the eastern end, and you're looking out to the ocean, on the right side is this really prominent hill. And there's all kinds of legends that hill is involved with. Well, in this particular one, Hina lives at the base of the hill. And Hina had a big family. Now, we got to say something else here. I'll mention that the name Kauiki is a word in Hawaiian that means restrained or inhibited. And so in the outer meaning of the story, because all the place names and people names have meaning in these legends. And because of this, she was feeling inhibited and restrained in her life. She had a large family, and the family was always calling upon her to do everything. And it was all day long she would be making tapa for the big extended family, tapa cloth. If some of you may not know, this was the bark cloth that was the traditional material for clothing in old Hawaii. So she would pound that. That's what she had to do, pound the bark and make the cloth all day, every day. She's very famous for that. But the family didn't appreciate it. And she always had to do things. In the original version of the story, it would take me maybe a couple hours to tell all the things that the family wanted her to do, some of them pretty gross. But we're going to skip over that part just for the story today. But main point is, she was really getting tired of this. So in this story, she starts out living as an ordinary woman. She's called a goddess, Hina, but not in the Western concept. The Western idea of a goddess is very different. Western idea of a goddess is somebody supernatural, beyond nature, with supernatural powers, and that's not the Hawaiian concept. Okay? She was a very powerful spirit, and she was more like an archetype of human possibilities. That's why in so many of the stories, she could play in the same story or sometimes different ones. She could be a mother, a grandmother, a wife, a daughter, and she could play all these roles, sometimes, like I said, sometimes in the same story, because she was more of an archetype. Okay? She had powers, but those powers were the kinds of powers that human beings could aspire to. Right? So in this story, anyway, here she is, working like crazy, all day long, feeling the drudgery. But at night, she began to think, this is enough. This is not the way to live life. I have to get out of here. And so she began making plans for that. Now, unlike most people of the time, Hina had a rainbow. And she was able, on this rainbow, whenever she wanted to climb up to the heavens. And so this one day where she finally made the decision to leave, she decided to go live in the sun. And so she made her preparations, and early one morning she got up and climbed the Kauiki hill right up to the top, cast her rainbow up to the heavens, and began climbing away. Well, she didn't do all the things that people were expecting her, and everybody looked around, and finally her husband saw the rainbow, and he was afraid of what was happening, so he rushed up the hill, tried to climb the rainbow after her, and was calling out to her, please, don't leave us. And she's saying, my mind is fixed. I'm leaving all of you behind. And so she continued climbing. Well, he just ran as fast as he could, but he wasn't used to that kind of path. And so he slipped and he fell back. But just before he fell back, he grabbed her leg and broke it off. Okay? Very Hawaiian. He said, don't worry about it. And so he broke off the leg, and she was unable to reach the sun, so she had to settle on the moon. Okay? And that's where she is today. And some people say that they can, even see her. If you look in the moon, some people see rabbits, some people see a man. No, if you look carefully, you can see Huna still making tapa for all the gods. So, to commemorate this event, she was given the name in legend. She was given the name of Lonomuku. And most people translate that as crippled Lono. Well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because the Lono legends and the Lono religions had nothing to do with Hina. You never find them together. They're just different things. Lono is a word, however, that has some other meanings. Most often its meaning is either news or remembrance. And it can also be extended to mean information and awareness. Well, muku is a word that, although it could be translated as crippled, the basic meaning of the word is something that's cut off, made brief, or has ceased to be. And, this is more interesting, it's the name of the very last night of the moon. Now, in the Hawaiian calendar, original Hawaiian calendar, they did not do it by days, they did it by nights. And each night had a name. And the very last night, when the moon is invisible, doesn't always happen, but when it does, that's called muku, because it means it isn't there. Okay? So really what we're saying is it means a state of non-awareness. And symbolically then, the cycle of the moon, where it goes from full brightness to invisibility, is very much like the state of meditation, where you go from full awareness to non-awareness, okay, in a cycle. That's not the aim of it in this way that we're talking about, but that's a cycle of meditation. Okay? So let's look at some of the other things that have to do with this, because we're going to look at the spiritual meaning of this story. When I say that, virtually all Hawaiian legends and stories have more than one level of meaning. Now, this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. We have this also in a lot of European nursery rhymes that we still teach to children today, and yet there are several meanings sometimes in those. Well, Hawaiians carried this to an art, and it's said that sometimes there even might be 9 different levels of meaning in a particular story or a chant. Okay? Ooh, that's a lot. But we're going to look at one level which has a spiritual meaning that deals directly with meditation on this particular story. So, first, I'd already talked to you about Huna and how she's really this archetype of human possibilities, and so at this level, then, what she does in the story is representing different aspects of meditation. I also mentioned the hill, Ka'uiki, all right? It represents the distractions and inhibitions of ordinary life, because that's what she was going through. Okay? Hina, however, has a rainbow path that takes her to the heavens. Now, rainbows can symbolize many things in Hawaiian, but this is one of them. What this represents here is a process or a pathway, a way of doing something. Okay? That's what this means. It is no accident when we say a rainbow path, which is what it is called in the story. That's Alawaya Nui Nui. And ala is a beautiful word that not only means a path, but it means to awaken. And so this is a technique, if you like, for awakening, for expanding consciousness, for expanding awareness. There's a clue, small clue, given in the words that she says, that part of the story, which is, my mind is fixed. Okay? That's the focus that's needed in meditation to reach heightened states of awareness. Okay? So, it's all telling about that. The bit of breaking off the leg, okay, so she has to go to the moon. This has to do with someone who has the desire not to go into either a full state of non-awareness or a state in which you no longer have anything to do with the world, but to go to a state of heightened awareness where you can still help others. Okay? That's what that represents. So the man representing the needs of the people still on earth, so Hina going to the moon instead of to the sun represents, there she is, she's still visible, she's still aware most of the time, she's still available, for helping people. That's the concept behind it. It's very similar, as a matter of fact, to some of the concepts in Buddhism. If you're aware of the people who, instead of going for enlightenment, will step back so that they can continue helping the people on earth. Well, Hawaiians had that idea too. This is a beautiful example. Okay. Now, the word for moon is mahina, interestingly. There's another word called malama, which has to do with a state of light or enlightenment. Lama can mean that. But mahina is the state, in which Hina is, because of the story. There's an ancient chant that is a chant about, because this is only a short version of the story. It goes on because she has descendants and they have adventures, and one of the most famous of her descendants was a man called Kahai, and it's a word having to do with strength. That's the connotation there. Or the one who breaks free of something. Okay? And so there's this chant about him. He was one of her descendants, not a grandson, further on than that. But he was a great adventurer and traveled many places until this happened. Now I'm going to give the chant in the original translation. And if it doesn't seem to make sense, don't worry about it. It's very difficult to translate Hawaiian, especially in the old chants, because much more than they do today, in the old days, it was a very figurative or poetic language. And rarely would they say anything about anything directly like we do. Okay? And so you have to really know the language and really understand the culture to some point to start digging deeper into some of these things. Because on the surface, you say, what? Okay. Anyway, here it is. The rainbow is the path of Kahai. First line. Kahai rose. Kahai bestirred himself. Kahai passed on the floating cloud of Kane. Perplexed with the eyes of Alihi. Kahai passed on the glancing light of men and canoes. Above was Hanaya Kamalama. Well, okay. Now let's take a deeper look at this. And then it makes a lot of sense. The first line, the rainbow path, I've already told you, that refers to the process of meditation. Okay? So this was his path. This is the path he chose. Now, its next one says he rose, he bestirred himself. All this means was that his consciousness rose and his consciousness expanded. He passed on the floating cloud of Kane. This has an awful lot of allusions to it, but Kane was considered the spirit of the high heavens. And Kane had a floating cloud. Now, clouds in Hawaiian symbolism are almost always thoughts. And so this was the realm of highest thought. That's where he went. His brother, Alihi, see, Alihi was so perplexed are the eyes of Alihi. What does that mean? Well, Alihi was his brother who wanted to also attain this state, but Alihi means horizon. And to say that his eyes were perplexed means that he could not gain that expanded awareness. He was stuck at the horizon, okay, and couldn't climb that rainbow path to the heavens. And it says, Kahai bypassed the light of the ordinary world, which means he went beyond this ordinary visible world that most of us deal with all the time. And it says he passed on the glancing light of men in canoes. This represents, the ordinary things like shopping and paying taxes kind of thing, okay? That's the ordinary world. He passed by that. And above was the light of the moon. That's one translation of Hanaya Kamalama. But this is an alternate name for Hina. So he's heading for where Hina went. But it also is very interesting because when we look at it, it really means, and this is a word for meditation, of this kind of meditation, it means moon work. That's what that phrase means, okay? Or moon activity. Or we could say moon-like activity would be a good translation. And so there's the story, and that's how this story relates to meditation and the process of it that was very well known by the ancient Hawaiians and still by many today. So, pipi holo ke ka'au, so goes the story. Now we're going to build on that story and talk about meditation itself and give you at least a couple examples so that you can understand a little bit more about it. Meditation, what it really is putting your attention on a limited area for a particular period of time and for the purpose of changing yourself in some way. That's what meditation is. That's what makes meditation different from reverie, daydreaming, fantasy, reading for entertainment, or even watching sports. Okay? Sure, you can be real focused and really into it, but if it isn't for that purpose of changing yourself in some way, okay, then it really doesn't appropriately come into the definition of meditation. Now, there's different words in Hawaiian that can help us out here, different words for meditation, each representing different aspects of the process. One of the words is wae. W-A-E is how we would spell it in English. And this word means, one of the meanings is to meditate, but it also means to choose or select. And so this is the process of choosing something to meditate on, or choosing some purpose for meditation. And doing that and keeping that focus, that's this kind of meditation. There's a similar word, a very related word called waena. But this one expands into other meanings. It still contains part of that first word, but it does mean to meditate, but it also means to center something, or the center of something, or to get centered. And it also means a garden, which is very interesting. And in the tradition of my family, my Hawaiian family that taught me, we often use a lot of you know this, a garden meditation as a way to get centered in the inner world. Okay? So that's a waena meditation, as we would call it. Right. Now, you can do that just for centering, but we'll talk about some of the purposes and benefits after a bit. Another word for meditation, a very good word, this really gets into the heart of it now. This is nalu. Nalu is a word that means wave. And if you're here for a while, you may hear somebody talk about he'e nalu, which means wave sliding. It's a Hawaiian word for surfing. Okay? But nalu is the wave, but it doesn't just mean the physical wave. It can mean any wave, and it can mean thought waves as well. And the roots of this word is na, which means peacefulness or calmness, and alu, which means to join together or togetherness. That's significant because nalu is a more passive kind of meditation. It's a meditation where you have an intention in the background, but you let the meditation do the work. You're not trying to make something happen. Okay? And so this brings it into the realm of most yoga and Zen style meditations. Okay? You meditate on something and allow something to happen as an effect of that focus. Okay? So, I missed one. No'o. Or sometimes more often, no'o. And this is often translated as meditate, but it really means to concentrate on something. And in Hawaiian language, it is generally, it refers to intellectual thought, not the kind of meditation we know of today. Okay. So this Nalu type of meditation is for passive focus. I mentioned that, to connect with, to join to something, to merge with something else. And that's why it's so much like those other kinds of meditations a lot of you are probably familiar with. In Huna, this Huna knowledge, which I'm teaching, it's one of two primary methods of meditation. In a Nalu meditation, there's no explicit purpose. Like I said, the intention is held in the background. All meditation has a purpose, but it's not necessarily explicit, and so that's what a Nalu meditation is like. Let's have a little experience of that. I mean, you're free to do this or not do this, but if you want to do it, it won't take long. We're going to do a 1-minute meditation and a Nalu type of meditation. Very simple, but I'll tell you later how to expand on it. All I would ask you to do, if you want, close your eyes to reduce distractions. And just be aware of your breathing. Don't try to breathe differently. Just be aware of it for 1 minute. Your breathing may change, and that's okay. But you don't have to do anything to try and change it. Just be aware. Okay, come on back. And if you want to, move your fingers and toes to get a little back here if you went out. Do we have any comments or questions on that experience?
I realized how much tension I was holding in my jaws.
You became aware of that, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, right. It's a good way to become aware of tension in your body, and if you do it for longer than a minute, to start releasing it too. Okay? Anybody else have anything? How many people enjoyed the process? That's nice. Good. Thank you. And it's such a very simple process, and I'm going to show you some other ways in which you can build on that. Now, another type of meditation we use is called hua. You won't find this translated as meditation. The most common translation is fruit or seed. Okay? It can be an egg, but that is really the same concept. The egg, you can think of it as the fruit of a chicken or the seed of a new chicken, right? But that's hua. And it's interestingly, too, that hua is the name of one of the nights of the moon, just before it gets full, okay? Which was a very powerful time. Okay? And in a hua meditation, what you're doing, or another meaning of it, by the way, and even the meaning of the word, that's where we get all these ideas from, is result or effect. Okay? You can see how that comes from a seed and the fruit. And so in a Hua meditation, you are purposely, actively trying to create an effect. Usually, not always, but usually with imagination. That's most common. Now you can use imagination in a Nalu meditation, but in a Hua meditation, you're using the imagination to try and create something or make something happen. Okay? And so that's a different kind of a thing. When we were doing the blessing earlier, the background of that blessing that we did for Earl and Lois in Honolulu, the background of that was the intention to help them in some way. But we didn't specify what way. And we didn't tell their bodies how to act or how to react. We sent blessings and left it up to God to carry out the process in the best possible way. That's a Nalu type of meditation. Okay? A Hua would be where we might say, okay, I would like to have more circulation in his legs, and let's help him to stand up and walk around the room more easily, and let's put a lot of red energy in his heart to keep it pumping strong. That would be a Hua meditation. Right? Difference there. So I'm going to take you through, tell you about a very simple Hua meditation. Not all that active, but still we're going to do this one with the breath as well. For this one, when you're ready, you can close your eyes if you want to reduce distractions. This time, when you breathe, just be aware of your breathing, but when you breathe, be aware of your navel. When you inhale, and when you exhale, with your mind, with your imagination, send that breath to some part of your body that you would like to relax or to heal or to strengthen. Okay? Just do that for 1 minute. Inhale at your navel. When you exhale, send that breath to some part of your body. All right, come on back, move around if you want to. Open your eyes. Now you noticed that the child earlier was doing a Nalu meditation, okay? And this time it was doing a Hua meditation, okay? Much more active, okay. Any comments or questions on this particular process? Anybody experience anything that you'd like to share, or?
Yeah, I went out of my body.
You went out of your body, okay.
I just suddenly woke up.
Okay, all right, well, you needed that.
I did.
Okay, good. Anybody else want to share anything? Okay. Okay. How many enjoyed that one? Let me get some kind of feedback. All right, good. Sure. You see, both types can be very enjoyable. As a matter of fact, no matter what you use meditation for, the definition of a good meditation is one that makes you feel good after. Okay? During is okay too, but that's when you know it's been a good meditation. How you get into these states, people use all kinds of methods. Even the Hawaiians did. Chanting is one way that can get you into these states. And you can simply chant a phrase, which is like a ritual phrase, which is make it more of a Nalu meditation. Those people who do Om are very familiar with that. Or you can do a chant in which you're actually laying out what you'd like to have happen. Okay? But chanting will get you into those states. Any kind of way of reducing distractions in your environment. Okay? So closing the eyes, of course, but going into a room that's very, very quiet, being in a or either very quiet or very noisy with a single noise, a white noise kind of situation. Hawaiians would use this kind of thing right out where the surf is. And then that would be the background that would help them reach that state. You can gaze at something physical and reach that state. Sometimes, to really reduce distraction, this was actually a technique that was used sometimes. You can read about it in the story of a famous hero called Moikeha, but they would go sailing to a distant island. And if you're out there on the water and nothing's happening except that your boat's moving along, and you don't move very much, you're going to have some very strange experiences. Very typical, people describe hallucinations, where physically, three-dimensionally, as realistic as anything you've ever experienced, somebody might be sitting in the boat with you, okay? Or walking across the water next to you, or a bird might fly down and have a conversation with you. All kinds of things happen in that very restricted awareness. There's a clue in a story about Maui that I just have to share. It's a story about Hina and Maui and how a man came from the Pleiades and visited the earth, and Hina was his wife and Maui was the child. That's a Kauai legend. But the very interesting part was that when he grew up, Maui climbed a coconut tree to visit his father in the Pleiades. Now, what's that got to do with anything? I mean, sure, okay. I mean, that's coconut tree's fine. Why didn't he climb to the top of the mountain? Because the word for a coconut tree, which is niu, also means to spin. And spinning is one of the very ancient ways of mixing up the senses in order to go into an altered state. Okay? So when you start looking for it, you find all these kinds of things all over in the Hawaiian legends in different places. The uses of meditation, probably primo number one benefit is simply relaxation. To focus in such a way that you're no longer thinking about your problems. And if the longer you can do that, the more relaxed your body begins to get. Because your body's all stressed out, mainly because of what you keep thinking about. Okay? Whether it's past, present, or future. But when you really get into a single or a narrow focus, and it can be even a focus on the present moment. And let's say one of the favorite ones we have is simply to be aware, totally aware, as much as you can, either on movement in nature or beauty in nature. And that'll bring you into a wonderful present moment waena. And your body will just be relaxed. And people have sometimes experienced great healings from doing that kind of meditation. So healing is another benefit. Because once your body begins to relax, then it can start healing itself. Right? So those two kind of things go together. It can also be done for creativity. I will often, when I write a lot of books, and when I'm writing, I'll do a nalu. And I'll do a nalu either on the story or a character. And a very curious thing, it's something in another book I have called the information flow effect. That's kind of an academic term. Somebody else might call it channeling. Okay? But when you put a focus with the intent for knowledge or for understanding or for awareness in the background, stuff comes. So on one of my books, the novel that I have up there, I was doing a nalu on the book, and two complete characters with histories, everything dropped into my mind. So I put them in the book. And there's a chapter in there I had no intention of writing, okay? But when I started doing the book and was doing my nalu on what's next, boom, this whole scenario came in. It's a very exciting way to write. Some artists will do this of different kinds. Musicians will do this for new compositions. You just do a nalu on the intention. Another great way to do a nalu is you use imagination. Let's say you want to help somebody or you want to help a situation harmonize. You imagine, let's say, if this were a room, you'd imagine this room filled with light of a color that you like. A color that you like that makes you feel good. And it can represent something specific to you. It could represent love or harmony or happiness or whatever. That's up to you. But all you do is be aware of the light. And let the light do the work. Okay? And so every time you think of the area or think of the problem, whether it's at work or at home, you say, remember the light. And be aware of it for, if you can be aware of it for 10 seconds, that's great. 15 is good. 30 would be a lot. This brings us to something else about meditation. That is a big secret. Okay? I'm the one to tell you. Okay? There is not necessarily any virtue in meditating for a very long time. You can meditate for a lot shorter periods and still get the benefit. I mentioned the creativity, the relaxation, understanding, healing, self-development, spiritual development, whatever that might mean to you, changing circumstances. These are all the benefits, but it doesn't have to take a long time. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do techniques that you've learned or techniques that other people teach that do take a long time. That's fine. There isn't anything wrong with that. And sometimes there's benefits that a short meditation isn't going to bring. I'm just saying that for most purposes, most of the time, you don't have to do it even for as long as a minute. And look at how good it felt just for a minute. Okay? It's not necessarily going to feel just as good after 5 hours. Okay? It depends on how your body is responding and how your mind is responding to that. Okay? When it becomes an effort, then you're really doing the process to create stress, and that's not beneficial. Okay? So just keep in mind, it doesn't have to take a long time. You don't have to quit your job, leave your family, do what Huna did. Okay? You just take a few moments, once in a while, get centered. Even just that, get centered in awareness of your environment, and you can start getting beautiful results too. Do I have any questions? Yes.
In the story of Hina going up the rainbow path, you talked about the stage where her husband breaks off her leg.
Yes.
What was the rest of her journey like, according to the story?
Oh, from there she went to the moon.
Right, but that process of getting to the moon, is there any...
All it says is she continued on the path until she got to the moon and settled there. Right.
And she's got only one leg, so I was just wondering what...
Remember, that's a symbol. Okay, we're not talking about it at the level where the poor lady only has one leg. We're talking about it as a symbol of the desire not to go all the way.
Right, so I was thinking if that has any other meanings.
Oh, at other levels.
At other levels, in other
Oh,
levels.
sure, sure. And you're free to explore those if you wish. Okay? Okay. Because there's a level of pure entertainment. There's a level of, there's a sexual level. There's a social level. There's all these different levels which can be explored. But that means that you really want to read the stories and you really want to get to know the language better. Okay. Yes?
How earlier you mentioned Mayana also means garden, and how in Huna we often do
meditation or we actively
Depends on what you do in the garden. If you actively change your inner garden, see, sometimes we'll do this meditation, we'll go to this inner garden that we are imagining, or that sometimes appears by itself, okay? And sometimes we actively weed the garden, which is symbolic of clearing out all the thoughts that are troubling us. Sometimes we'll actively plant seeds so that new experiences will come into our life. Okay? So we can do a Hua meditation in the garden.
Could we do a 1 minute garden meditation? I think everybody would love it. Anything else?
Well, how many would be interested in such a thing? Okay, then in this process, just for you, I will make it more interesting to everybody by teaching you a simple process of how to focus in the inner world. So we'll do that. Okay? And then you can apply this to anything in your life. You can even apply it to getting more focused in the outer world. Okay? So that's a benefit. All right, so we'll do this quickly. Okay? Take a deep breath. Let your eyes close if you want to. Imagine a garden. It can be any kind of a garden. It can be a garden you're familiar with, but it's going to be a mental garden. It can be a garden you've seen. It can be a garden that just pops up right now. Just imagine a garden. And in this garden, see one thing as clearly as you can. Might be a tree. Might be a rock. Might be a flower. But see one thing as clearly as you can. And hear one thing as clearly as you can. You might hear the wind blowing through the tree. You might hear water splashing on the rock. You might hear a bee buzzing around the flower. But hear one thing as clearly as you can. And touch one thing as clearly as you can. You could touch the bark of the tree, or the surface of the rock, or the petals of the flower. But just touch one thing. Now that gets you really centered in the garden. Now, if you want, you can explore your garden. You can see what kind of plants are growing there, or you could plant some if you want. One time I helped my son. He needed confidence, and so we planted raspberry bushes of confidence all over his garden, and it increased his confidence in the outer world. You can do so many things. So this is a visit just to show you how to get there and how to focus there. Now, we like to say, bless your garden or thank your garden, thank the images. Everything is alive, aware, and responsive. Thank whatever part of you produced it. And now, in reverse, be aware of your body here and touch something as clearly as you can. You could touch your fingers, you could touch the chair, you could touch your lap, your cloth, your clothing. And hear something in this room as clearly as you can. Now open your eyes and look at one thing as clearly as you can. Take a deep breath, move your fingers and toes, and be all back. All right, Stewart, would you like to do the meditation?
Sure. You want a healing?
Yes. Everybody's got their stones.
Aloha, everybody. So you've got your piece of nature. And I trust that you chose one that appealed to you, that in some way made you feel good. So I would invite you to look at this piece of nature that you have and to pay attention to what you find beautiful here, what you enjoy. Look it over carefully and find whatever you can that appeals to you. And then pay attention to the feeling, to the pleasure of enjoying what appeals to you. So be mindful of your state of being, your feeling that you are experiencing right now as you enjoy this piece of nature. And allow your focus to turn on expanding that feeling good. Because we want to do a healing here, and we want to help other people who are not feeling good. And we want to help them feel at least as good as we are right now as we enjoy this piece of nature in our hands. So allow yourself to go in to really feel good, to feel the joy, to feel the wonder and awe of the beauty of the piece in front of you, the beauty that you experience in your life, the joy that you have in your life. Get yourself as best you can into a state of great awareness of the pleasure and joy of your life. And now invite whoever you feel that needs a little help, a little support in feeling good. Invite them into your heart with you. Rather than sending healing energy out, bring them to you and let them share your loving space, your space of joy, and hold them in your heart and allow them to resonate with your joy. And come on back, give thanks to them, let them go. Give thanks to your piece of nature, give thanks to the whole process. You can do this at any time you like. But right now, just put your breath, your loving energy on this piece of nature and put it back in the basket when it comes around.
Oh. The idea is that it will keep that thought of yours, until the next time someone picks it up and uses it for healing.